Hello, it's me, Raj Baddhan here for Lyca Radio's YouTube channel as we continue to bring you lots of exclusive content for our listeners and also our viewers here on the YouTube channel. So welcoming you to a very special person who joins me here on Lyca Radio's YouTube channel is the lovely Rohini, Dr. Rohini Vijaygopal, who is a senior lecturer at the Open University. First of all, I just want to say welcome to Lyca Radio Studios. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Raj. Nice to have me here.
Honestly, it is a complete and do you know what? It's a pleasure for us because we've been looking forward to seeing you. I know you do a fantastic job at Open University, but also because Open University has always been supportive of Lyca Radio.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, before we go into Open University, I want to understand a bit about your background. So tell us a bit about how you kind of got into Open University and prior to that, your experience.
Well, to be honest, I landed into academia by accident. My first degree was in pharmacy, so I worked in the pharmaceutical industry and got into exporting and importing medicines, really. And at that time, I remember working for the managing director who sponsored me to a course on export-import management. And while I was still working with her, one day she just said, "I'm very busy. I have to go to an event. Will you stand in for me?" I didn't know what that entailed. So I just went in to be led onto a stage into an auditorium full of probably 1,000 students for supposedly a course in pharmaceutical management, an inaugural function, the first of its kind. And then they said, "Here is Rohini and she's going to talk to you about it." On the spot, for 1 hour, I just said what came to my mind and what I was learning in the export-import management course. And the feedback was phenomenal. People just came back to me and said, "That was fantastic." And I thought, okay, I've got some skills to talking to an audience. And that's where my interest began. So I started teaching at universities while I was working on weekends. And I just was fascinated. I said, okay, time to do an MBA. And that's when I did an MBA in marketing management. Came to the UK and realized, well, researching is not just about, looking at newspapers. There's a lot more rigor to it. And that's when I did my PhD in consumer acculturation and then joined academia full time. I've never looked back. And now I'm with Open University.
And you don't miss pharmacy, you don't miss your back.
Well, you never miss something which you've learned, and I believe in lifelong learning. You really don't lose things which you learn. It's just that things come back to you at different stages. So I may be talking about generic drugs when everybody wants to listen to brand names when they want to buy it, or I'm integrating psychology within marketing research. I think it's just build up. You never lose anything.
Yeah. I do. I mean, the whole accidental thing is very, very interesting because there's a lot of people that, sometimes, they stumble across something which they're not meant to, but it just happens. And now you're having such you're flourishing in the sector that you're in at the moment. Any regrets? Do you ever think, this is absolutely not the kind of area I want to go into. This is something now I've done and I want to try something new?
Not really. Fortunately, I've always done things which I enjoyed doing at that moment in time. And so long as I enjoy doing what I'm doing, I'm in that field. I mean, that's fortunately been the case so far. You never know what life will throw for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
But I want to know more about your current position, which is obviously of a senior lecturer in marketing at Open University. What does that role entail?
If I were to tell you concisely, there are three distinct elements to what we do as a senior lecturer. Obviously, one part which most often people think senior lecturers do is teaching. Yeah. So we do curriculum development and teaching. Yeah. And which really, it's interesting because it just keeps me alive. As you grow older, you get cynical and you see these youngsters with a lot of future gleaming in their eyes. And it just keeps you young internally.
I was going to say, maybe that's the secret to your beauty as well.
Thank you. I don't think I'm beautiful, but thank you for that compliment. The other thing which I do is immensely interesting as well, which is research. We research in various areas which are topical. Right now, I'm researching a new technology and marketing communications and consumer empowerment, something which is happening right there. And then you're researching, and research mind always has a level of inquisitiveness. You want to find out more. You find something interesting, you flow it back into your curriculum, you teach the students what's really topical and happening, so they're ready when they go out into the world there. And then we publish. So what we get out of teaching, we publish. We could publish in academic journals, we could talk to you, we could write in newspapers. There's a lot of public engagement which can happen. And the third area, which is also, I think, very important, is knowledge exchange. What it means is we are having certain skills, you having certain skills, businesses have certain skills. So what if we can get together and exchange our skills to progress things further? So I've worked on projects like, there was a tea company which came in and they wanted to look at not just marketing but also packaging design as well as technology, and and then it's when you go to a university, you've got different departments, you have different disciplines, one-stop solution can emerge. Absolutely, so there's lots of win-win which you can actually get.
It's interesting because obviously you're telling me about this outside before the interview, and the whole process intrigues me because there's so many different kind of sectors here, but the whole way of combining them all together is quite magical.
Yeah, it's good fun as long as you're enjoying the process. I think it's good fun.
Core strengths. What would you say are the core strengths of being a senior lecturer at Open University?
Core strengths, I can speak personally for myself. Well, I come from the industry, so I spent a considerable time in the industry before I organically got pulled into academia. So I can actually relate to it. I mean, when I'm developing curriculum, when I'm teaching, I can make sure that I'm constantly relating to the practice-based world out there. And I think it's even more relevant because I belong to business school. It all depends on discipline. I've been fortunate to have taught in India, in UK, continental Europe, undergraduates, postgraduates, executives. So there's always this multicultural dimension which comes into play. Personally, again, I think lucky to be having taught. I've been with various universities. I've taught in the traditional face-to-face classroom. I've taught through online even before the pandemic-based online started, well before that. So synchronous, asynchronous, yes, they're different, but I think beyond a point, once you zone into the subject, you just forget whether it's face-to-face or online. You just zone into the topic of interest. And I think there's also possibly an element of, if you have little bits of interdisciplinary work which you've done in your life, like you asked the question right in the beginning saying, have you forgotten pharmacy, or do you regret something? You don't, because right now I do use psychology based methodology to do marketing research.
So it kind of works hand in hand, doesn't it?
It just makes it fascinating. It breaks barriers. It brings things which haven't been brought together earlier. So there's a lot of fun element to it.
It's like a whole kind of concussion of things, which is fantastic. You mentioned research. I want to know a little bit more about the research that you've done and you've got yourself involved in. And can you tell us about the kind of areas, the topics that you've also kind of researched in?
I used to write for newspapers, which obviously was not research retrospectively when I was in the industry. But when I seriously got into doing research, my first brush was PhD. So way back, I think 2006 or thereabouts, when I started my PhD, it was about living my own life out. I was getting acculturated into the British culture. And I was very intrigued in terms of what happens when a person from one culture comes to another culture. And what kind of changes take place? Is it that you look at different brands? Is it that you buy different products? Or is it that you mingle with different people? What really goes on in this black box was what was the interesting aspect. And I was actually, while I was doing my PhD, it was also about what is playing out in my own head. That was my starting point, and it was quite fascinating. It didn't look like work at all, because it was almost as if I'm living my life out through my research. But then I moved into segments, obviously organically again, into looking at developing marketing communication strategy for electric cars, adoption of electric cars. This was like, I think 2013, 14, early days. And looked at, when I say I, with respect to research, me and my co-researchers, we looked at the possibility of gamification as a way of imparting knowledge to consumers in order to adopt electric cars. And that opened up a whole dimension. Again, it was organic. And then we said, okay, we finished this research. What next? And then we were thinking, okay, the logical stuff is driverless cars. Let's do that. And while doing that, again, personal life, blending of things. A friend of ours in the US, he wanted to start a disability charity in the UK, and we did the first chapter in the UK. And that's when we thought, oh, disabled segment, driverless cars. Nobody's looked at it. Let's see how that pans out. That was organic.
Yeah.
Another instance, it's strange, but this is how it develops. We're sitting in the cafe. I think it was Brexit, yes, no referendum. Michael Gove had just come and announced, 2040.
Yeah.
It's going to be non-petrol, non-electric, and stuff like that. And we were just joking. We just said, what if we had a referendum of yes and no for, removal of petrol and diesel vehicles?
Yeah.
That was our next research.
Yeah.
Wow. How would people vote yes or no?
Yeah.
And what would make them vote yes or no?
Yeah.
What is their knowledge? What do they view the people who are driving these electric cars or driverless cars? And they said things which were so interesting. I'm telling you, they said, who do you think, I mean, non-drivers, who do you think are the ones who go on electric cars or who go into these high-tech space? Those are the people who probably hug trees, or those are the people who grow their own fruit and veg. It's amazing what you hear from people. It's nice. Yeah.
It's interesting, very. I do want to ask you also, just away from Open University, and of course from your personal side, marketing in general has changed and has jumped leaps and bounds to your traditional kind of traditional marketing that we used to have. It's all about digital these days. A lot of digital channels open up, lots of opportunities open up. What's your take on that, and what do you think about this whole kind of influx of social media and YouTube, etc.?
I think it's fascinating. We're living in fascinating times. When I remember growing up, it was just one-way communication. It was television ads. You look at it and then you absorb what you absorb and then you do what you do. And today they can talk to you, you can talk to them, they can listen to you, and they can improvise on what they offer. And I think it's amazing. I think it opens up new, and when I now hear about all these, newer technologies like metaverse, you can be part of it, and augmented reality, AI, and I'm just thinking, wow, there are lots of opportunities, but we've got to be careful in terms of keeping them within ethical and legal framework.
And also, you need to make sure that it's the right brand being promoted in certain marketing, because you got to be careful. You don't want to be kind of exploiting your brand in certain areas, which is not going to be effective.
Yeah,
so
I think positively all the time. So I do think life will find its way. I mean, every new innovation came with all these fears, but hey ho, we're still living and we're still doing
absolutely.
stuff.
No, but if you've got a large budget, then great, just exploit yourself everywhere. But if you're pretty kind of concise, and these are, I think, because of the living crisis, people are more reluctant to spend. So I think, that's my next question. I was going to ask you about how important it is for businesses to be marketing. I mean, you're from a marketing background. What if there's a new business that just hasn't got marketing spend? What would you say to them?
In the course of life, I've seen lots of stuff. I've seen companies during times of difficulties would say, let's cut the marketing budget. Understandably so, if that's the situation. There are others who would say, okay, we've got enough, we can carry on, right? But I do think marketing is important. Marketing is important, and that's where I believe there's always room for innovation and innovative ways of doing it. So, like, we're living in cost of living crisis. So what if businesses can find ways of communicating and putting together packages where they can be economical for those who want to, and actually communicate that bit as marketing. And that way they are helping people who are under budget to still be able to enjoy the products or services. So it's a win-win both for the business and for the consumer. I can see lots of brands out there are already doing that.
I think it's a great thing that now that the pandemic is over, so many markets have opened up, and businesses are now promoting themselves as they used to. It's just the way things are at the moment because of the blip with the living crisis. I mean, you mentioned obviously businesses tend to cut down in particular during hard times.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Do you think it should be a bit more consistent, or do you think it should be the fact that yes, stop and then come back on again?
I think it will all depend on each individual business and what they have in terms of reserves. If you can carry on, please carry on.
Yeah.
If you cannot, then find innovative ways of still keeping it going.
Final message. What would you like to say to everyone that's watching right now?
Well, one thing on academic, I would really want to say, I think most people do believe that academia is whole-fledged and you've got lots of aspects to it. Indeed, I would want you to remember that it's not just about teaching, it's about teaching, research, knowledge exchange, and all of them inform each other, and it makes it very, very rich. My invitation to businesses out there is there might be something which can be beneficial to you all. Do have the conversations with the universities. For all you know, something could emerge. And finally, if I may, I would like to invite students to a recently advertised funded Open University studentship, which has gone live on jobs.ac.uk or open.ac.uk, which I have kind of advertised in the area of research, which I'm currently interested in working and publishing, which is what is the role of marketing in terms of making smart cities inclusive? And I'm really, really curious to dig into that much deeper. And I would invite anybody who's interested to please go and see if you want to apply.
Rohini, I'm absolutely fine with the plug. If somebody wants to contact you directly, how connected are you on social media?
Well, they could email me on rohini.vijaygopal@open.ac.uk. They could go and Google my name and they can read my profile, which is, I mean, university structures do have good, dissemination of profile.
And the SEO is very good for lecturers like yourself. So when you go to Google, just type in the name, you'll get everything. And you're pretty savvy on LinkedIn as well, I believe, because I've seen you on LinkedIn, which is great. Dr. Rohini Vijaygopal, I just want to say thank you so much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for popping into Lyca HQ. I do want to ask you one question. Now that you've had a bit of a taster of media, any interest in radio?
Interesting for universities?
Would you ever do a radio show? Are you the kind of person to do something like that?
I'm not sure. I'm open to learning, as I said. I mean, this would trigger me to get interested in areas which I have not ventured before.
And you like a radio, like a gold. You listen to Bally Brombeth, I believe, on Like a Gold.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what kind of music are you into generally?
When it comes to Indian music, it's the Bollywood songs that I've been listening to as I grew up, and it's just going back to the 80s and 90s and the songs of that era, really.
Fantastic. Like a Gold is for you then. You've got Like a Gold, which plays retro Bollywood music all the time, 24/7. In fact, the UK's first and only retro Asian station. I've got Like a Radio playing you all the latest stuff. Dr. Rohini Vijaygopal, I just want to say thank you very much. It has been lovely having you here, and I will catch you again very, very soon. Do keep listening to Like a Radio and Like a Gold, and of course, we'll keep supporting Open University and, of course, yourself as well.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you for inviting me. My pleasure.